have pointed out over the years, it is not easy to change. And that is the context in which we need to situate whatever progress or lack of progress that have been made between the dialogue process on trade issues between India and Pakistan. Second is, I think Professor Mukherjee mentioned about threat to imports. Threat of imports from India to Pakistan. Again, a point which needs to be situated in a proper perspective. People generally feel that exports, and that is why, perspective is important, because barriers to trade actually come up because of lack of understanding. People feel that exports are good and imports are bad. Whereas the fact is that no trade deal is bereft of both exports and imports happening simultaneously. One has to be a buyer, one has to be a supplier. There will not be any exports from India thrust upon Pakistan unless a Pakistani buyer, places an import order of a particular quantity and at a particular price from an Indian exporter. So even if Pakistan opens up, for Indian exports, there is no threat. It must be an economically viable proposition for an importer sitting there in Pakistan to place an order. And the very fact that that person actually wants to source it from India means that is the most economic way to do something. So I think we have to move away from this mindset of considering only exports are good and imports are by definition very bad. Exports and imports dynamics do assume a special meaning in the context of trade deficit. If trade deficit becomes, unmanageable and goes beyond a point, yes, then imports, you can look at it that way. So therefore, barriers to trade need to, look at from that perspective. Third is that when we say barriers to trade, largely people think non-tariff barriers. I think the distinction between non-tariff measures, which are very essential when you trade, because you won't like to import a mobile phone where the battery would explode the other day. So there are certain technical specifications which are fit for human consumption that you import a product, or mangoes imported from one country to another. Obviously, you would not like an infected mango to be consumed by a consumer. So therefore, sanitary and phyto measures are important. So non-tariff measures need to be distinguished from non-tariff barriers, but there are a lot of operational level issues, procedural level issues. I think Dr. Huma's paper presented mentions about, agents having nexus with customs officials at the border. Now, this is not a barrier or a policy. This is an operational level issue which has evolved in a particular location. And therefore, this barrier is very distinct from a barrier which is policy driven. So I would just want to mention that when we approach barriers to trade, we should not club everything to non-tariff barriers, as if the governments of both the sides are actually doing that. And finally, a couple of points on this very fascinating paper on media and reporting on media, because I feel that if media doesn't play its positive role, yes, we can achieve what we want to achieve, but at the same time, when it comes to forming opinion and when it comes to changing the mindset, I think media definitely plays a very important role. So therefore, Rahul's paper is an important contribution. But I have a few suggestions just for your consideration if you can improve your paper. One is that you need to search items with the quality of reporting. So many times a positive news about India, Pakistan and trade may be presented in a negative manner. People may say, oh, this has happened, but this has not happened and this is not sufficient. Second is, so it is not only the quantum of reporting, but also the quality of reporting. So you can distinguish between the way it is being reported, that is one. Second is, the terms that you have used, you can expand that, because search outcomes on internet are a function of the words that you actually search for. So maybe that would be the second point. And the third is, when you take the mean across media, not just over time, and then plot it over time, you will get a different picture. I mean, you should take mean across media reporting, I mean, like Business Standard, Economic Times, Times of India, Wall Street Journal, whatever, across media, but over time, and then see the coefficient of variation. And because coefficient of variation is actually sensitive to the level of mean, I mean, lower the mean, coefficient of variation may show infinite. And a small technical error, SAPTA did not expire in 2003. It was subsumed in SAPTA, as you mentioned. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you for putting some of things in perspective. May I now request Mr. Pradeep Sahgal, Director of Sinocom Impex, with a lot of practical experience, to bear on the problems? Please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ikriyar Nishaji, for giving me another opportunity to interact and again meet so many wonderful people. I would like to start with small comments on Huma's presentation. I would call it my type of presentation, short and crisp, giving the real-time information. Just one addition that there has been an initiative at the local level. She covered that in on the last slide. There is by custom initiative, a local body has been formulated known as AVAC, which is Atari Vaga Agents Coordination Committee, which will I believe that it will do a lot of work in addressing the local level issues. Secondly, I agree with more or less what has been said. I am just gauging it on my experience in doing trade. Regarding Athar, I would say that the convertibility ratio of Indian Pak rupee has been hovering in the orbit of 1.7 convertibility ratio, and one currency takes the lead, other follows it. I don't know the reasons, but that's what we have been seeing it. And so more or less it has been given comfort to both sides, offsets the imbalances. LCs are operating smoothly, there's not a problem. And you talked about consignment as a product, but I see that there's a difficulty in settlement of those consignment in the present rules. Overall, I would like to point out here that we must look at banking sector as a whole. Whether what kind of support or what kind of impediments it is creating as a whole, because that's a very important aspect of trade. Without banking sector support, you cannot do trade. So we have to look at it. There are challenges. To make myself feel better, I have started terming barriers as challenges, and it gives you feel-good factor to everybody, because you tend to take on challenges. That's my personal nature also. So the banking sector as a whole has to take on this challenge. There are glitches with banking sector. It has to support the trade. Now briefly, to save on time, I would like to point out here that we have to be very specific in understanding the nature of the challenge. A challenge may be a challenge at, let's say, Vaga. It may not be the same at seaport or at railway, because it has a specific nature. For example, it has to do something with phytosanitary. Maybe the department is not performing, or it's not having the facility at a particular port, and maybe it is having the same at the second port. So we have to understand on a very specific level the nature, and then we can find the cure for it. We don't have a panacea here. Every challenge has a different cure. Then we have to be, I foresee as barriers or challenges as, for example, anything which is increasing my transaction cost and transaction time is a barrier for me. Anything which prohibits me to engage into a specific trade between India and Pakistan is a challenge for me. Anything which prohibits me to increase my volumes in that particular trade is a challenge. It's a challenge or a barrier for me. Anything which prohibits the basket size of products being traded to get big is a challenge, and we have seen that the graph of the figures is static between the trade volumes between India and Pakistan. They're not improving since last 2 years. They're more or less on the same plateau. That's a big challenge. Why it's happening? I think if we find a remedy to that, we will come to know of many hidden truths we have to really address. And very briefly again, I would request the policy makers to have a deep look. Now I'm being little biased with the land route trade, because I do mostly all my trade through the land route, and I would like to recognize a very eminent personality sitting with us, the chairman of the Land Port Authority of India, Mr. Sharawat is here. We have really grown on trade as far as road route is concerned, though it's having its own challenges again. But the policy is also focusing, facilitating the trade through the seaports. We have gaps, both sides, policies needs to be modified or changed to facilitate trade from the land route. It's not there. Nobody is looking at that. Whenever something is pointed out or some challenge is there, and then we start looking at it instead of having a pre-look at it. Next is that we have to have a weightage. I'm just finishing. The weightage of challenges hampering the trade vis-a-vis the mindset of engaging the trade. What is the weightage? Are the spoil sport the challenges or the mindset? We have to give a weightage. We have to find a way to that. And in the last, I would like to point out that one of the biggest challenges to the formal trade, which I have found out, is the informal trade, which is not letting it grow. Their vested interests or deep-rooted roots already formulated, and unless something is done to uproot those channels or to dislodge those channels, informal trade is going to be challenged in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for extremely the flow of trade. Well, this completes the panel. We have barely 15 minutes. We are back to back with another session. And though we started 10 minutes late, I don't know if we can extend this session. Therefore, I'll have quick, short questions and comments. And the panelists may kindly note the question or comment which they want to respond to. Yes, I'll come there. Yes.
Yeah, two quick questions. First from...
Very quick, please.
Okay,
Yes.
Atharlai. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on having these bank branches. We trade with the whole world. I'm not an economist, I fail to understand, but we don't have their branches here. And if the LCs are working, as Pradeep was saying, normally, so why do we really need that? I can see the benefit, but still that much emphasis. And the other thing was, you said about trading in local currency. We used to have this trading with local currency with Afghanistan. We just did away with it because of various reasons. I'm not going to go into that. And Rahul's presentation, very, very good. And my question is that, okay, we looked at the negative of that. But then the media, this under Aman Kiasha, played a very positive role also in promoting trade. So it would be interesting to know, what was the impact of that. And finally, because Pradeep is one of those people who is on ground and he's been there do you see that NTBs and these have really reduced over the last 2 years, or is it about the same, or what?
We'll appreciate if you limit to 1 or 2 comments. Yes, yeah, please. Yes, yeah. Quick, please, quick. We don't have much time.
I'm Professor Anil Srivastava, Editor-in-Chief of International News Bureau.
Go ahead.
I disagree with Mr. Rahul Mendata, as Mr. Ram said.
Louder.
That Times of India is not the only opinion maker for the 1 billion people in India. You go through the menus. Read myself, when I got invitation from ICRIER, I had 2 options. There's a big 40 countries seminar is going on in ITPO. I could have got good business or to come here. And I decided to come here, and I thought, I feel it's a worth, because since yesterday, every speaker was very, very informative and thought-provoking. So I feel you go through the other papers, and I request the ICRIER to have a Indo-Pak media meet. It will solve the...
All right. Thank you for the suggestion. The next one here, just behind you. Yes.
Sir, my name is Shreyas Deshmukh. I'm a student. I have a question.
Yes,
The relation between India and Pakistan is more or less same like North Korea and South Korea, but they have a cooperation in form of Kaesong Industrial Park. Why there is no such example between India and Pakistan? Thank you.
Thank you. The last one. Yep. Yeah, hand there. Yes, I have noted you.
Hi, I'm Jatin Bavishi from Delhi University. My question is specific to Mr. Rahul. Sir, the title of your paper says Reporting on Guns versus Butter. The title, I feel, is a bit ambiguous. Can you just focus on why did you use
Okay,
these
all
words?
right. Thank you. The lady here. Yep.
Quick comment again on Rahul's paper. I found the title very interesting. Second is regarding the numbers you are saying. You say that divided by Pak and India. Now, this is not necessarily the correct indicator as an economist, because as it is, if you see, the absolute numbers are always higher for the Times of India paper. It's just that your numerator is 2 times larger and your denominator becomes 6 times larger. So in absolute terms, Times of India is always reporting 6 times and 2 times more on India and Pakistan. So the indicator of proportion to me needs to be commented upon. Second is, you are saying that underreporting by Times of India might be acting as a hindrance. Now again, in light of your paper, you are saying that whatever reporting is there, it's hostile. So if there is underreporting, then I think it's a good thing, because it is probably promoting trade, because the negativities are not being there.
Thank you.
And okay, fine. And third one is, you say that the business standard numbers are the lowest because it has the lowest circulation. Again, as an economist, once the paper has been published and it's on the net, then circulation is not going to determine the number of times the items.
You made your
Thank
point.
you so much.
Sardar Sahab, yes.
Just
Yes.
a simple question. Has he noted down what really happened a few days ago in Kashmir and Indo-Pak border, where around 100 crores worth of brown sugar was captured, and what happened? I believe you should have taken that, considered that in your presentation. And second thing, the methods you are using, I believe there is something called Google Alert. That would be much more wiser, better way of getting all the information about Indo-Pak from all over the world as compared to just Times of India. I'm sorry to say, this Times of India tag which you are trying to use is, I don't know, are you promoting Times of India?
All right, thank you, thank you. Yes, last one, please.
Just two very quick observations. The fact that Times of India coverage is so low is worrying, because Times of India is in partnership with a group, a newspaper group in Pakistan, to promote Aman Ki Asha. So it's a little worrying to see that. But more importantly, I think if you really want to test your hypothesis about whether newspapers affect the overall context in which trade liberalization takes place, you should perhaps look at the Hindi press and see what views are expressed there. And similarly, on the Pakistan side, take a look at the Urdu press.
Thank you. I think Dr. Huma Amir is not responding. He is not responding on her behalf. So Dr. Eli first. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you need to get an answer from her, I can give her email address. It's her research.
Okay,
she'll be in a
fine.
better position to answer.
Good enough. Yes, Dr. Eli.
Okay.
You have the most, you at the end.
Okay, about this currency risk, I think I also mentioned this point that currency risk is making, if we start doing this in local trade, then this 1.7 is going to be stable. But if we are doing it in US dollar, then I think in both, because we are depreciating in US dollar, and US dollar becomes like something difficult to have and difficult to that's why it's basically because of that conversion to that basically